Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Pavel Zemlyansky, and I would like to begin by thanking the conference organizers, everybody, for inviting me to speak to you. I think it's a great event. I think it's a great idea to have students and faculty get together and discuss the pressing issues of their profession. Before I begin my short presentation today, I wanted to tell you a little bit about myself and what I do professionally here in the United States, and then I will talk about how what I do currently informs my views and my ideas about the topic of intercultural communication. I am an associate professor in the School of Writing, Rhetoric, and Technical Communication at James Madison University in the state of Virginia, which is about 2 hours south of Washington, D.C. And our school has several programs. We train writers, editors, web designers, technical communicators, graphic designers. As you can see, there's a lot of different activities going on here. And what I also do here is coordinate the graduate program, the master's level program. Our master's program has two different concentrations, one in technical and scientific communication and one in writing and rhetoric. And I'm telling you all this because the topic of my presentation will be sort of the issues related to intercultural communication as I see them from my standpoint as an administrator, someone who works with graduate students very closely, someone who helps them choose courses, someone who advises them on career decisions and things like that. So to conclude this introduction, what I want to say is that the rest of my presentation will be informed very much by my work here at JMU as a graduate coordinator. Traditionally, the training of professional communicators has been focused on what I would call local issues. Things like writing, editing, web design, graphic design, just sort of being good communicators in a physical setting like a company or a government organization. And that is what most graduate programs in professional communication in the United States have focused on for the last couple of decades. However, in recent years, there's been a growing realization that this kind of training is not enough, and that in order to compete in a globalized marketplace, globalized workplace, our students need to have a better understanding of what it means to be a professional communicator across cultures, across countries, across linguistic, cultural, and customs boundaries. Of course, the main driving force behind such a change has been the globalization of the job market, the globalization of the world economies. And so a lot of programs in professional communication began to include classes in intercultural communication and teach their students at least the basics of communicating across cultures. In the last couple of years, though, people have begun to realize that including separate classes in intercultural communication, while it may be a good step towards the internationalization of these programs, it is probably not enough. And in the last few years, we have seen arguments about internationalizing programs as a whole, or placing intercultural and interlinguistic concerns at the center of training of students. The way this has been done in a lot of places in the United States is by sort of permeating every class, at least at the graduate level, with notions of intercultural communication, with the idea that upon graduation, students will have to compete in a globalized marketplace, globalized workplace. So in practice, things like traditional things we've been teaching students like writing, editing, working with web design applications, working with graphic design applications, have been supplemented with things like cultural sensitivity in web design, specific techniques like how to choose an appropriate color scheme when you're designing a website that would work well and be received well in a given culture, how to choose topics, issues, concerns that are that the local populations are more likely to be receptive to, and so on and so forth. And again, the main driving force behind these changes has been sort of the differences, the changes in the job market, in the globalized marketplace. So on one level, these changes have taken place at the level of separate programs and separate universities. But at another level, the government of the US has, I think, begun to realize that if university graduates are to be competitive in the global marketplace, the government needs to add some effort to that training, some effort to that initiative, and so several grant initiatives have been introduced in recent years to help universities in this country to prepare culturally sensitive and culturally competent communicators. One such grant is, for example, the Program Internationalization Initiative that has been run by the Department of State, and the funding for that program has increased substantially in the last couple of years with the new administration. And there are a couple of programs like that in the Department of Education as well. So overall, I think while this has not been an easy transition, I think the government realizes that the universities need help in internationalizing their curricula. In the second half of my talk, I'd like to discuss briefly some of the practical implications of these developments that I see as a teacher, as a scholar, and as an administrator, at least looking from the United States point of view, but also knowing the importance of cross-cultural communication for Ukraine and the post-Soviet countries and Eastern Europe and just the rest of the world, really. I think there are a couple of lessons that we can learn from this. One lesson at the level of a university, a department, a program, is that we really need to make sure that our students get the intercultural communication training they will need in order to compete in the globalized marketplace. I think it is absolutely imperative that we include courses and other forms of training into our teaching which would prepare students for such intercultural work. And by that I mean not only knowing the language of another country, but also understanding the customs, understanding how language functions in specific professional discourse communities in that country, understanding how different professions are structured in those countries, how, for instance, what the professional norms and customs are within communication, say in Ukraine as opposed to the United States, and vice versa. And the second lesson, I think, is sort of at the level of each individual teacher and each individual student, and that is the understanding that if you, as a student, if you're hoping to make a living using language, using communication, using interaction with people, in order to be competitive, you must be able to work in different cultural environments. And of course, in order to do so, you need to understand at least the basic of intercultural communication and how people communicate differently in different societies and in different cultures. And so any kind of training, any kind of help, any kind of pointers that you can get from your teachers while you're a student at a university anywhere, you should try and get those, as many of those as possible. Learning another language is, of course, very helpful, and I think my audience in this talk would agree with that. I don't need to convince anyone of that. But as I said before, also other factors are extremely important. And before I conclude, I would like to leave the audience with a couple of questions for discussion, which I hope you can discuss amongst yourselves and also with me in writing or during a live forum, a live session of some sort. It was a pleasure speaking to you today. Again, thank you very much for the invitation, and I look forward to discussing these issues and these questions with you. Have a great rest of the conference. Thanks again. Have a great day. Goodbye.